it does change your mind, and you realize people are people are people. And I think this attitude in the Twin Cities has been, let's not deal with that. Okay, yeah, there's arsonists and the police are dealing with that. That's their business. Let them handle it. Let's all focus on the healing. And I think that has been a very, very positive thing in this city. And that's a good thing as we go forward. And I hope we can stay on that.
Disinformation is spreading.
There will be a surprise outbreak.
We only have so many
the issue of pandemic.
No social distancing at all.
They said that they would express their concerns about the mask supply.
Where's the mask? Where's the glove?
One expert says a second
get away from all of these
We all
people.
need some good news.
A message for all the healthcare workers out there.
Thank you.
If you're looking for hope tonight, raise your hand. If you feel alone and don't understand, if you're fighting the fight of your life, then stand. We're gonna make it through this hand in hand.
From Santa Rosa, California, this is 19 Stories. I'm Cheryl Halling. Michael Bear Meyer is originally from Los Angeles, California, and a veteran of the music industry, getting his start in retail and wholesale distribution in 1970, then as a consultant for some of the most prominent domestic and international record labels and recording artists in the business, prior to ending his illustrious music career in 2002. Donna Spidie Meyer is a Jersey girl, originally hailing from Maplewood, New Jersey. She's a graduate of both the Minneapolis College of Art and Design and from United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. Over the years, she has worked as an art director for numerous commercial and nonprofit organizations, traveled the world while using her art to document its landscapes, and is now an artist, painter, and sculptor in residence at Squirrel Haus Arts, an 8,000 square foot arts and community space located in the Longfellow neighborhood of Minneapolis, Minnesota, that she co-founded and runs along with her husband, Michael. Bear and Spidie Meyer, welcome to 19 Stories.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
It's great to be here.
It is so good to have you here with me. How are you doing today?
Well, we're doing good. We're in Minneapolis, and it's a beautiful day. It's in August, and Squirrel House is a little quiet right now, but we got lots of projects, so we're happy.
There's a lot I want to ask you, so let's jump right in. Given you both come from such diverse yet creative backgrounds, what was the impetus for starting Squirrel Haus Arts?
You know, Cheryl, when we moved back to California, to Capitola, part of that was to help my mom. And we actually moved next door to her. And my job was, I could be on the telephone anywhere because I was communicating around the world. And we noticed when we lived in Santa Cruz area, and then when we relocated to Sebastopol, there was a major disconnect in providing an outlet for creative people to come together, especially in a collaborative way.
Mm-hmm.
And that, through the encouragement of Spidie, I just had a dream. And when we, after my mom passed at 98 years old, we moved back to Minneapolis, and we had an opportunity to put that dream into effect. And we knew that based on what we wanted to do, we would probably have to buy a building. I don't think there would have been a landlord that would have put up with us. And so we did about a year search to find a building, which we did find. And we basically cleaned the place up, brought it up to code as far as all that boring stuff, plumbing, HVAC. And we basically opened the doors with zero marketing and zero marketing plan. And through Spidie's connection with flamenco, mine with music and the dance community, the art community, as they say, you build it, they will come. And our clients started coming because there was such a drastic desert, even in Minneapolis, for a place that people could come and work their art and have artists themselves who owned the property and understood and could help them get through what they needed to get through. So that was kind of the start of Squirrel Haus Arts.
Which is so beautiful because that's actually needed in Sonoma County right now. And you are correct. If you build it, they will come, and they have come to your place indeed. I'm curious how you came about choosing the German spelling of house over the English spelling, and also the origin of its name.
Hi, Cheryl. It's Spidie. Well, Squirrel Haus Arts, it's like kind of a birthday party with our friends, and we were around a table with lots of wine, and I thought, what kind of animal do I like? And I thought, well, I like chickens. But Chicken House sounds like a fried chicken restaurant.
And other
Um,
things. I think there's a place in Vegas that already has
Chicken
that
House,
moniker. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Uh,
know about that.
I hope not. I
I
hope
mean,
not, Michael.
can you imagine Bunny House? So I thought squirrels are fun. I like squirrels. From a marketing standpoint, I thought I can work with this. And HAUS is just to make it arty and different.
Mhm.
So I thought Squirrel Haus Arts, catchy name. I can work with the image of the squirrel. It's so that's the reason.
So the Longfellow district that you're in is named after, of course, the great American poet. Did that have anything to do with the allure of the district, or that just happened to be the area that you found?
It was really the area we found. Northeast Minneapolis was sort of known as the hub of the art community, although it's spread all over town, but that's really the main focal point. But again, we needed to buy a building and there was just nothing available. And this building became available in the Longfellow district. So we did some homework, and it actually is an amazing neighborhood, very diverse, easy to get to when you're doing events and so on for clients. The location was picked basically because this is where we found the property.
Give us an idea of how you run such a large facility and who's responsible for doing what.
It's pretty simple. I'm the guy. I'm the janitor. I'm the one that books every group that comes in. I do all the maintenance of the building, and it's just something that I really really enjoy. We have not many rules here, but one is if you want to come to Squirrel House, you have to come in and sit with me and have a one-on-one interview and talk about what you want to do. And then when needed, Spidie jumps in and she can help artists that maybe are stuck on something or have a desire to be collaborative with other people but don't know how to do it. And then when we have the big opening, Spidey's here to welcome everybody and make sure everybody's comfortable and support the artist. And then usually I'm the bartender that night. So we kind of divide up, but you have to remember Spidey is an artist and we have that luxury that she can focus full time on that. So I sort of do the building and she does the art.
I would imagine having such a space and the need for such a space in your neighborhood. How do you discern who has access to it? I know you said you sit with people and kind of get an idea if you're a fit, but what do you do when someone's not?
What we do is after just letting anybody, come in and talk to us or call, Spidey and I decided let's try to narrow the focus a bit. And so we came up with the idea that what we were going to do is focus on performing and visual arts, on community, and supporting nonprofits. Now, what that automatically did is eliminated calls for people that wanted to do weddings here and birthday parties and receptions and so on. And, when people call and they want to use it for some other reason, I'm quick to give them recommendations. For example, I'm sure like in Santa Rosa, we have just a million independent breweries that have opened up and they all have nice space. So we're able to refer those kind of people to go to those places, more of a party atmosphere. We don't do this for the money. We do this because we want to support the arts community. We want to support community groups that can't afford to hold functions because the rent is too high. And we certainly want to do it with nonprofits. And so that's what our charter is now.
Which is really beautiful to have that kind of outlet that is not available in most communities. And so you have this beautiful space that is used for wonderful art shows, community gatherings, collaboration, which is now under the cloud of COVID. You're also in a highly contentious area, given the recent murder of George Floyd. What are the current mandates in your city, and how has it affected your ability to gather and have shows?
Well, I'll jump in, Cheryl. Our mandate, like a lot of places, is mask. on the inside, and people can gather outside. Uh, we had decided when COVID started that we can't have gatherings at Squirrel House with hundreds of people and manage their health. So that's why we shut down, and we unfortunately disappointed some people who had some shows coming up this summer. So Michael and I decided to even hold off till fall, and now we're thinking about next spring, even. So it's quiet here. However, we still have always used Squirrel House as a place for rehearsals for our friends and the theater community. So we have lots of band equipment. I'm looking around right now, and our church band is going to be rehearsing here. And we also have our church service who lost their building during COVID and also the riots here. So
Oh, they actually lost the church.
well, we gathered in a music venue right next to the third precinct that was burned down.
Oh, wow.
Now, that venue, which is an old firehouse from the 1800s, actually is still standing, but they had some water damage. And because of COVID, we weren't meeting anyway. So we just moved the whole church over here to Squirrel. And now we're doing it teleservices from here. So that's cool.
So you have the worship team that comes in and the pastor, and then you do the broadcast from there. Is that how that works?
Yeah, the way we set it up, Cheryl, is we have our pastor, Holly, and she does her bit from what we call as the front gallery, which is at the front of our building. And then we have another room, which we call the back gallery, which is actually in the middle of the building. And there we have musicians, and we have different stations set up where they're 6 feet apart, 8 feet, 12 feet apart. We have the drums in an isolation chamber. And then as you go into what we call the build design space, which is where we build sets for theater and where Donna has her welding shop as part of art, and I have my wood shop, we have isolation rooms set up for the vocalists. So it's working out pretty well. We don't allow guests, and they're here every Sunday, and now they're rehearsing 3 times a week with us just to keep everything going and keep the service vibrant. So it's been a nice addition since we've been closed to have that activity here, because this building is designed to be used and not just sit.
Glad to hear, though, that you are not gathering large groups of people, because that is such a bone of contention across the country. There are so many school of thoughts, and most of the guests that I've spoken with are definitely on the side of really caring for one another. The guest that I just interviewed prior to you, 4 of his family members, including himself, all got COVID by being at his mother's memorial service.
Oh, how
Wow.
tragic.
And of which his father passed less than a month later from COVID. So you're doing the right thing. And I would say if you were a for-profit business, that would be really difficult for you. But because you have set yourself up this way, it's almost like you are just at a sweet spot that you can hold on to your building. It's not affecting a payroll and, other things that a for-profit business would have. And I, of course, imagine that you really want to get back into community. So I understand that you're 2 miles from 38th in Chicago, which is the place where George Floyd was murdered. I'm wondering if the Squirrel House community has been able to come together to help service the needs within your community.
Well, this is why I love Minneapolis. Since George Floyd's murder, not only the folks in the neighborhood around South Minneapolis, where this is where it all happened, but really people as far as, I don't know, hundreds of miles away came in with brooms and with dustpans when we had the riots and things were being burned. I am so proud of my community, how everyone pulls together. 38th in Chicago is still a memorial site. It probably always will be. It keeps changing. I've gone up there, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. People leave art, poems, messages. They just walk around in prayer, which is wonderful and beautiful. It's a very sacred place now, and it's, right in the corner of South Minneapolis. So I don't know what more I can say about the heart and soul of this town that is really, really, really special to me.
A few blocks from us, Cheryl, we have a church, Trinity. I think it's a Lutheran church.
Yeah, it's Lutheran.
And Spidie's not going to boast, but she's been doing a lot of volunteer work there because Trinity Lutheran really came out of the fire and smoke and started setting up tables and distributing food. And it was a call to arms where people in the neighborhood started showing up. Our church showed up, other churches showed up, and they're still doing it. Not so much food anymore. They switched over to things like, Pampers and baby formula and all of those things you need to run your household. So, it's just one of those things with all this craziness that went on. You just saw a tremendous outpouring, and you saw people putting themselves at risk by getting out there and helping other people.
Yeah, and the reason for a lot of that food and product giveaways right around the 3rd precinct where the fires had started originally, which is right down the street from us. It's the precinct that manages 38th in Chicago. So it's the 3rd precinct was burned to the ground, and they also burned down Cub Foods, Aldi Foods, and they looted the Target. And this is a very diverse neighborhood. A lot of East African immigrants are here, and they just lost all of their food sources, and their Walgreens also was burned and looted. So this neighborhood was pretty much destroyed in the course of a couple of nights. So the Trinity Lutheran right there by the precinct was saved, and that's where it became a site for all these donations and drop-offs and volunteerism, and they're still doing it.
Which is going to be needed for a time to come, and how beautiful that they're doing that. I understand, I read a couple things that your governor, Tim Walz, is it?
Yes.
That yesterday he signed an executive order extending the peacetime emergency protections against evictions and wage garnishments.
Right.
And also that supposedly on August 17th is when 38th in Chicago will open up, that you'll still have the memorial in the center, but it'll be open to traffic. And how that's going to happen, I guess, is to be determined.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you still drive around town and you see so much devastation. It is literally like a bomb went off. Some sites have been able to start clearing, but there's a charter in Minneapolis where you can't even start to clear your property until you have made the second payment on your property taxes. And so Walgreens, Cub Food, Target, the standard gas station, these are big corporations that have that ability that they can bring their taxes up to date. And you see those lots being cleared. But you go to where the liquor store was and the barbershop and the Indian restaurant and the Native American refuge center, it looks like it was just burnt yesterday, all the rubble, all the metal and so on, because these are individuals that can't come up with the money to get the city off their back so they can start rebuilding. So this is going to take a while. And if I may, the scary thing about what was happening on those consecutive nights is that most of the marching and then the looting and then unfortunately the fires occurred on Lake Street and, probably a 15-mile length, but there was damage. But the other thing that was happening in the neighborhood is people taking advantage of the situation were driving, 8, 9, 10 miles away. And these weren't the picketers, peaceful picketing. And they drove to places like gas stations that had convenience stores. And they burnt the buildings down after they looted them of their alcohol and their cigarettes. They went to a Walgreens. It's probably 5 miles from the closest area where the protesters were. And twice they looted the store. The second time they burnt it to the ground. And so as Donna was saying, how this neighborhood is impacted in such a negative way where people don't have their local services, it's also impacting a greater service area because there's no gas stations within 8 miles of us. There's no drugstore within, 8 or 9 miles of us based on these people that were taking advantage of the situation. I mean, I sat up every night with our security cameras on, watching from inside of our building, waiting for, a window to smash, a door to cave in, or whatever. And fortunately for us, it never happened. But this was not limited to just one specific geographic part of Minneapolis. This was spread out quite a bit, which was just really terrifying.
Well, the one thing about something like this is it is a catalyst for change. It's actually horrific that it takes something like this for our nation to wake up and realize that we have to have a dialogue. And certainly as white Americans, we need to have the dialogue within our communities and also reach out into communities that maybe we wouldn't before. But there's always going to be somebody and groups of people who will take advantage of a situation. And it's devastating because it affects the very communities that they live in and that serve them. I'm curious if there's been any kind of dialogue within the churches, within your Squirrel House community, of people trying to reach out and understand so that there can be dialogue and healing, the beginning of healing in your city.
Well, thanks for saying that. It's something, Michael and I are white Americans, and it's like I have had my eyes opened to this horrible injustice within my city and also my country. And like a lot of, white middle-class people, I am just humbled by the whole thing, and I'm trying to learn the most I can by doing the book clubs and the readings and all that stuff. So that's what we're doing now. I'm very aware of how our city has not treated its Black and brown citizens very well. And everyone thinks, oh, Minnesota is so calm and nice. And we are, but we also are a bit passive aggressive, and we're not that friendly, to outsiders. So I think a lot is going to be changing in Minneapolis, as well as when they say defund the police. That's under big scrutiny right now as well.
Cheryl, we're really lucky in that we have a governor, we have a mayor of Minneapolis, we have a mayor of St. Paul that are healers. And from day one, even though there was hard decisions to be made about calling in the National Guard and abandoning a police building, et cetera, from day one, their message has been about healing and bringing people together. Now, look, let's be realistic here. We're human beings. And I will say initially, you did hear those comments where people going, hey, they burnt their own neighborhood, let them figure it out.
Wow.
Or, the poor grandmother that's on camera saying, I don't have my grocery store, I don't have my drugstore. What am I supposed to do? And, people saying, yeah, it's your grandkid is the one that did this.
Oh, really?
And that was there. And I'm not blaming people. I think that's a pretty natural reaction at first. But it's when, and Donna's been really a calming effect for me, especially when you really start listening to what people are saying. It does change your mind, and you realize people are people are people. Mm-hmm. And I think this attitude in the Twin Cities has been, let's not deal with that. Okay, yeah, there's arsonists and the police are dealing with that. That's their business. Let them handle it. Let's all focus on the healing. And I think that has been a very, very positive thing in this city. And that's a good thing as we go forward. And I hope we can stay on that.
Well, and that's, I think, one of the reasons I started this podcast is I wanted to acknowledge people's stories around the country of what they're dealing with, because it's so different. I mean, we've all seen the pictures of people going about their lives as though nothing is going on. They're taking their vacations, they're gathering in large groups, and then there's other people who have been directly or indirectly affected, both economically and socially, and with the virus. So I do want to ask you, Donna, about some of the artwork that you've done. My first question is, before we go into that, is do you both have any fears as it relates to COVID and how it's affecting your community?
Well, being of a ripe age of 72, and I'm terrified. I have bronchial asthma. And I know that if I get it, there's a good chance that I'm not coming home. Mm. And so as a couple, yeah, we've been extremely careful Now, Donna's healthy as can be, but mindful of me, we've both been very, very careful. We have two friends that we see on a regular basis, but even when we're with them, we're wearing masks. When I cook, I'm wearing gloves and a mask. So, yeah, every day we're really being very, very careful in what we're doing. And haven't been in a restaurant since early March. I do the grocery shopping, but man, I am suited up and get in and get the heck out.
Yeah.
You picture it.
I won't do food delivery from a restaurant. There's like 3 restaurants that we use for Squirrel House for lunches, but we trust them. So we've kind of opened that door a little bit. But other than that, we're just being very, very careful. And, we're so blessed that we have Squirrel House. I mean, I'm literally here and Donna's here. We're here 6, 7 days a week because we've got our own projects that we're working on. So it's not like we're home chained up, and so we're equally blessed in that manner. But yeah, straight and narrow for us on this whole thing.
And how beautiful that you have that outlet, really. It's
Oh, yes.
kind of your
Yeah.
sanctuary and saving grace, I would imagine.
That's right.
Donna, tell us about the 3 portraits you did of George Floyd and where you placed them. And the last one I thought was so powerful, which included Psalm 13 on it.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about what gave you the creative desire to not just do 1, but 3.
Well, when George Floyd died, there was something about the reference photo of him looking straight into the camera, and I wanted to know him by looking into his eyes and honor him. And I thought the best way to do that was to paint him. And so the 3 portraits were because I wasn't done looking at his eyes
Hmm.
and honoring him and praying for him and his family in that way. I made them, they're big, Cheryl. They're like 4 feet by 3 feet. So, and they're on vinyl. So they were at the back of some banners that we had here at Squirrel House. The first one had words from a poem written by a student in Chicago, a 15-year-old student called The Plea. And she's a African American student, and she wrote so beautifully a poem about her future.
Hmm.
So I wanted that to be around George Floyd's head and thinking about the future. And went there and nailed it up on some plywood like you do. And that's, of course, these disappear. But you have to release them into the world because I don't know where they've gone.
Now, when you say there, 38th in Chicago?
38th in Chicago,
Okay.
yeah. Uh-huh. So the corner has Cup Foods there, but there's also storefronts, railings. There's a big roundabout, for lack of a better word, a memorial right in the middle of the corner. So there are lots of places to hang artwork. So the last one that had Psalm 13, and I chose Psalm 13 because the opening line, "How long, O Lord, will my enemies be hurting me?" So that was the opening line that I really felt was powerful in this situation.
And it is. And is that one still at 38th in Chicago?
I haven't been up there to look.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
In fact,
Probably not.
I normally do this at the end. Please tell people where they can access your art. And that leads me into the question about your Art to Life Academy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, I think the best way, because I do post on Instagram now, and it goes over to Facebook, but it's Donna Spidie Meyer on Instagram, Spidie. And Art to Life, that was really it's such a great program because it started for me just as COVID hit, and I had to go to the studio and try to start to make art with no other distractions. So art.
Yeah,
So
no
if
pressure.
I can't say enough about this program. It's online and you can look it up. It's art and the number 2 and the life. And a painter named Nicholas Wilton out of Sausalito started it. So that's really helped with my artwork too.
Cheryl, it was interesting. I'm the promoter of the group, and when Spidie was doing these paintings, she did not want to sign them. And she took them up there almost anonymously. Well, all these hundreds and hundreds of people are milling around the neighborhood when she left the first one, and she basically just left it. And I said, "Wow, I'm surprised you're not putting your name on it." And she said, "No, it's these are for the world. They're going to go wherever they go, and it's not important that I did that." And I thought that was pretty amazing.
That is amazing because most artists, kind of live and die by that because that is you. That's an expression of you. But the reason that you did it is to give into the greater whole of
Right.
the healing of your city. That's really
Hmm.
beautiful. Are people able to access or purchase your art when they do visit your social media?
No, I don't know why.
Are we are we working on that, Michael?
Well, I have to tell you,
I don't
when
know.
we could get out and about, we're going around to various friends' house, and we're sitting in the kitchen or the dining room or the living room, and I look up and I go, "Hey, that's that painting I like." And so she tends to give it away. So any of our friends, you can go to their home, and you're going to
And
find.
barter with them.
Oh yeah, yeah. I go like, "Hey, where'd that painting of the crow go, or the crows?" Oh, I gave that to Kernsey, the Minister of Music at Spirit Garage. So yeah, Donna does not have this, I possess this, I must keep it, I need to make money. Her joy is doing it, is working with different materials. And then if somebody likes it enough to say, boy, I would love to have that, there it goes, it's gone. So I make a point to tell her, don't give that one away. I love that one. And so she's been pretty good with that.
You answered one of my questions, which I'll ask that to you, direct it to you, Michael. But before I ask you, I'll say I do have a Spidie Meyer original on my wall, which is you
Oh, you
probably don't
do?
remember. It's a heart. You did a
No.
mixed
Oh,
media.
yeah.
You put like a piece of
Yep.
an earring, a former earring or a necklace.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love it. It's
yeah.
in my living room. So I'm very blessed by it.
I love that.
So
Yeah.
we know, Donna, that your art brings you joy. What brings you joy, Michael?
Um, Diversity. When I retired, and I was lucky to retire, fairly young. I know the statistics of men who retire, especially businessmen, and they don't make it very long. And so one of the things I decided I needed to do is get busy, but I wanted to have a diverse mixture of things in my life. And I will tell you a side story. When we were living in Sebastopol and I had retired, Spidey came home from work one day, and I'm like a little boy wanting to tell, mom what a great thing I did today. And I said, "Hey, baby, I picked up 3 accounts in London today. I'm going to be a consultant." And waiting for the applause and "Wow, you're amazing," she just looked at me like and said, literally, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What?" She said, "You're supposed to be retired, and here you are adding accounts." So I got rid of them as soon as I could. I spend a lot of time doing volunteer work. That's a big segment. But I've learned to do things that are fun. So for the last 10 seasons, I'm a boat captain on Lake Minnetonka, which is this huge lake we have in the suburbs of Minneapolis. And I take senior citizens, I take Alzheimer's patients, I take wheelchair patients out for boat excursions. The place where I volunteer, we have a 30-foot tri-hull pontoon boat that we put a wheelchair ramp on. And so I do that, and I train all of our drivers when we get new drivers. For a while, I was driving a golf cart at Fort Snelling, which is down the street from us in a historic fort, and getting elders from the parking lot to the entrance of the front of the fort by driving them in a shuttle cart. So I do that, and then of course Squirrel Haus, when we were open and active, took a lot of my time, and it was just a ball because I was working with so many different people, artists, coordinating, helping them, having meetings, then having another meeting, and then having a setup meeting, and all that was good. And then I spent a little time in my wood shop. And of course, now what has changed, I am training boat captains, but I just told them that I'm a high risk and I can't be around elders. So that's out.
Oh,
Obviously, Squirrel House is out. So I'm literally in my wood shop every day. And I've been working on projects for Spidey, which has been just a ball. And I'm having a lot of fun with that. So
Yeah, Cheryl, he's making frames
well,
for
I was
me.
about to ask you, what are you creating in your? I had no idea that that was an outlet for you. So what are you making?
Yeah, he's really good at it. So right now he's making some frames for me, but he's also made these amazing tables and cabinets and just beautiful
Potting tables,
stuff.
and for friends. I'm as bad as Spidey.
Yeah,
I won't charge anybody anything. So I've been doing that, but it's fun because Spidey purchased a frame. It's kind of a box frame, and it's got some interesting routing to it, and it was expensive. And so I said, let me look at it and let me take it apart, dissect it. And so we figured out a way that we can make them here, and each frame, with aspen wood costs about $6. So that's been good. We're also huge into recycling. One of the things that we started in 2019 is a recycling and organic recycling program at Squirrel Haus. And in 2020, what we were going to do is say, you can't use anything at Squirrel Haus unless it's recyclable or it can go into
Oh,
compost.
how fantastic.
Yeah, and that was a fun program to get started, and we're still playing around with that. And I'm signed up. I want to become an instructor in that for Hennepin County, where you go around and you help people understand how to do recycling and organics and all of that stuff. And that's a passion Spidey has. In fact, one of the paintings that I will not let her give away is a 6 foot by 6 foot, somewhat abstract painting we have in our living room that she took when we toured the recycling center here in Minneapolis. And it's basically a mountain of cans and paper and all of the things that were going to be recycled. And she did a beautiful, beautiful painting of it. And that's like one of our pride and joys.
Well, and first of all, most people don't have the space to, excuse me, display such a piece of art. So you created this piece?
Yeah, it had to be 6 foot by 6 foot. I don't know why, just a gigantic pile of garbage. But
Well,
I really
it
like
makes the
it.
point, certainly. It certainly makes the point. And you know what, Michael, you have not retired. I think it's interesting that we even have that term in our country.
Mhm.
What's so encouraging is the older we get, it's more, and I said this before in another interview, acceptable, and I say that with air quotes, to have creative outlets, to be productive, to use all of our life and world experience to do things within our communities and for other people. And that's what you're continuing to do. I love the pictures I've seen of you as captain. You just look so joyous and so
Mhm.
happy and so in your element because you are a people person. You both are.
Yeah.
Um,
But Cheryl, one thing that we had to decide as a couple, and it wasn't so much what do we want to do going forward, it's what don't we want to do. And, I had an amazing career, but whether I was working for a company or developing a company or working directly for an artist, you're working for somebody. You're taking your energy and your time and you're building something for them.
for someone else, yeah.
And we decided, and then when Spidey retired, is the same thing. We didn't want to work for somebody else. We also didn't want to spend our time doing things that were not what we wanted to do. And I developed this little thing, and I've actually have used it quite a bit with people that have either been fired or had retired. And I said, what we had to do is we visualized a pond, and it's a still pond. And you throw a pebble in that pond, and the ripples start going outwards. And you can't make a decision on what you're going to do next until that pond becomes still.
Mm.
In other words, you have to get all of the stuff out of your head, the routines, the schedules, I got to do this, I got to do that. And that really served us well. And it got us into a position where we could start talking to each other about what's next because our minds were still and we could talk about what was best for us as a couple, what was best for us individually. We have different needs. Donna loves to travel. Donna's traveled all over the world. Well, I've kind of outgrown that, and that's fine. I still support her in that. So there's enough that we come back together that we do together that makes it all really good. And then there's also, because we're individuals, we're also doing our own things. But we have enough time in the day or the week or the year to do that. And that's been a really blessing that we have.
Isn't that the beauty of getting older is deciding what you don't want to do anymore
Mm-hmm.
and not everyone, and I know you're aware of this, so I'm not preaching to you, but not everyone has that luxury. But if you're in a position where you can do that, because we realize how precious time is, especially right now. It's so every day is a gift.
That is true.
So what is it you do? And I think you've answered that. I mean, it sounds like everything you are both involved in does nurture and relax and keep your mind healthy. But are there specific things that you do when you're overwhelmed that you rely on?
Well, to me, this is going to sound probably odd, but my release is power tools.
Of course it is.
You put a drill, a skill saw, my table saw, you put that, and I can just get lost. And I can tell you, I can speak for Spidey. You put a brush or a pencil in front of her, and that's where the release comes from. And then, of course, our dear friends and our cat Tilly, and there's just a lot of things. We count our blessings every day, and we talk about that. We acknowledge that for whatever reason, by the grace of God, we're damn lucky, and we're not gonna mess with that.
Yeah, and Cheryl, I like to drive away, to be honest. So I'm camping up in the northern Minnesota for 3 days by myself, just because I had to, go on a big long drive.
So you've gone, or you plan on going?
No, I'm going to go on August 23rd. Just me and the
You
mosquitoes.
and the mosquitoes, yeah. So you said that was southern, right? She will not be in northern. She go to the south. Is there something you wish folks were mindful of right now, or more mindful?
Wow, wear a mask.
Yeah. Come on, get
Come
smart.
on, people.
Wear a mask. Nobody's freedom is being trampled on. Question everything. Question our government. Stay in touch with your representatives in the House and in Congress.
Keep the pressure on.
I've worked with ours a lot in different projects. I work in an anti-slavery sex trafficking group. I've been doing that for almost 20 years. Our Congress people listen, and they want to hear. So, we just need to keep communicating to people. We need to show a lot of love, a lot of patience, forgiveness, all of those, normal
grace,
human
yeah.
things that we tend to forget when we get busy. But this is our chance to slow down and regroup and do what's right.
It absolutely is. It is a time to rethink what we're going to take back into our lives when it becomes normal, whatever the new normal is going to look like.
Mhm.
What makes you hopeful?
Wow, these are really
Wow.
these are great. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Out of the events of the last couple of days with Biden and Harris makes me very hopeful for the good of our country. I know not everybody feels that way, but I feel hopeful in that. I feel hopeful in reading about countries like New Zealand,
Yes. Yes.
and by doing the basic things that our medical people have said has had such tremendous results. And it shows that we can do this if we just get united. Did we get united as one people in World War II? Didn't we get united as one people in 9/11? I mean, this is worse than any of that as far as we are being attacked, and why we can't come together as one voice to make this thing go away is just really confusing me right now.
And I believe that's a much larger narrative because it certainly addresses the divisiveness in our country. And I think if we just really educate ourselves as to what true injustices are in the world, a mask is not an injustice. It is not an affront.
Right.
Is there something that you'd like to talk about as it relates to this time in your life? Something else?
Just on the topic of hopefulness for me.
Yes, Donna. Sorry, didn't mean to leave you out of that.
That's okay. Because there's another thing. It's okay if you can picture back when George Floyd was murdered, and we had a lot of protests, a lot of peaceful protests here in Minneapolis. And we have the privilege to know some young people in their early 20s who were at the protests and are so passionate about change, making change. And they're not stuck on the topic that our generation has made a hash of everything, because every generation says that. But the young people that I know now are so smart and just so passionate about making the world a more equitable place. And I love seeing that.
That's part of educating ourselves too, because it's so easy. Like you said, we've heard it from our parents' generations about, what the youth was like. And until you sit and talk with someone, whether it is a millennial young person, a person of color, someone from a different culture, it's so easy to jump to conclusions about them because we live off stereotypes, don't we?
Right.
One of the things that I think would be so wonderful, and I know it's not possible right now, that I read that you did at your space, is you had the Safe Hands Rescue, and how wonderful if that could happen right now. But maybe you can, as we close out, you can talk about what that is a little bit, and we'll leave on a very happy, lovey thought.
Okay. Yeah, one of the joys we've had, again, what we do here is so diverse. I think last year I counted up, we were occupied like 255 days out of the year.
Wow.
So you want to talk about a need. And you know what? I got to tell you, for the most part, we donate the space or we charge so little. Donna hates it when I say it, but I refer to us, we're profit challenged, but that's the whole idea. Well, one of those groups that came along is the Safe Hands Rescue. And through a friend of ours, he asked if they could store a bunch of donations, dog beds and so on, that they were going to be selling at their next event. And we did that. And then with that, I met the founder of Safe Hands Rescue and just, of course, fell in love with what she's doing. And so we decided that we would do what they call an intake. And what they will do is they will take 2 or 3 vans and they drive to Kentucky, which is sort of a transfer point, and they pick up dogs and cats that are in a no-kill shelter, and they bring them back to Minneapolis. Now, the interesting thing is we've had up to 111 dogs come in an intake. Normally, it's in the 70s and 80s. When that van arrives, our back parking lot is full of people, and each one of those person has passed their application so they can become a foster parent to that dog.
How beautiful.
So when they come in, and the videos we have are hysterical, it's just mass confusion. So they
For
will
you or the puppies?
for the people, it's nuts. So what they'll do
everything
is
smells like dog.
the vans drive up, and the first kennel that comes out, they go number 42, and somebody will come running like they, at the Price of Right, and they set the kennel down, and that number 42 has the leash, and they get the dog out, and they embrace and do all that face licking, take him for a walk, and then they come into Squirrel Haus, and here it's a production line. The front gallery, the first stop is a triage, so there's a whole group of veterinarians there. They do an inspection of the dog. If there's medication that's needed, they write new prescriptions. And then they go to a feeding station where, based on the dog's diet, they're given food. And then they go to a new leashing station. And then they go to a photo station. And the whole time they're with their foster parent. And then we have zones where, because the dogs are stressed out, up in the back gallery, we have an area where the older dogs are. And that becomes kind of the quiet zone, where the new adoptees are sitting on the floor with the dogs, or laying on the concrete with them, and just getting them to feel loved and calm down. And then you go in the back gallery, and then there's all these makeshift puppy pens where, there's 40 puppies, but there's also 40 people there that, have leashes and are going to take them home. So we've done that, I think about 6 or 7 times. It's a great organization. They will come in the day before and they set up in about 3 hours. And then when they do intake, normally the vans arrive on a Sunday morning by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And by 11 o'clock, they have processed all of these dogs, and all the dogs are on the way home. And then these volunteers bring out the disinfectant and scrub Squirrel Haus from, head to toe, so to speak, to get it back to smelling not like dog, but, like Lysol or whatever. So we are so joyed. But yeah, we've had to put a halt on it right now. And they've also had to cut back. They're still doing it. But guarantee once we get through this, come February when we reopen, we're hoping they'll be one of the first to be back with us.
That is my hope for you as well as your other art installations and projects and music and all the wonderful things you both are doing with Squirrel Haus Arts. And tell us your website so people can check you out.
It is Squirrel
Haus, Haus, arts.com.
As simple as that.
And also Facebook.
Oh, Facebook
Yes,
too.
join their Facebook page. And
Yep.
Donna and Michael Meyer, thank you so very much for your time. And Michael, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I read what one of your favorite quotes is, and I thought it was so beautiful and apropos to how we can be of service and have an effect on our communities and our world today. The quote by Edward Everett Hale.
Oh, that one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm one, but
Boy,
I'm only
Cheryl, I
one.
haven't said that for a long time, but it's, you remember it?
Cheryl, do you have it in front of you?
I do have it, but I was hoping to
Oh, I haven't used it for so long because, we use it at church almost every Sunday, and it's been a long time. So, yeah, you are catching me off guard.
It's okay. I got your back. I'll read it because I think
Okay.
it is so apropos to today. I am only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do.
And Cheryl, where we started using that, Spidie and I have been involved over 20 years with a group that deals with sex trafficking around the world, cyber sex with children. And when we were meeting with our congressional leaders in Washington and here and helping them, sponsor bills, and I was going around and doing speaking sessions, it is such a huge problem. Matter of fact, there's something like 37 million slaves in the world today, which is more than was ever in the slave trade.
Yeah.
And so many people would get overwhelmed. And our pastor at the time taught me that saying as a way to, people knew that although they were only one, there was something they could do to help these families or children that were enslaved in fishing villages, brickyards, brothels, and so on. And that's why that became ingrained in us and still holds true today.
It is so easy to become overwhelmed when the need is so great. And yet, if we realize that it takes everybody doing their part to be that one, and if we do it all together, then it is a collective voice of change. And I believe that's happening in our communities around the world right now. I just wish you continued good health. I'm so glad to hear that you're both taking the necessary precautions to care for yourself and care for your community. I miss you both very much.
We miss you.
And you mentioned New Zealand. Mark and I have been talking about, given the current political climate, that there's either New Zealand or Minneapolis. So I don't know. We're
What?
Simply because
You're going to move here?
Well, because
Come
we want to
on.
descend upon your creative community, but Mark is like,
Yes,
can't deal with
please.
the winters. I was like, well, I said, pick your point. Do you want extreme humidity or cold? And he's like, well, I don't know. You can always turn on the air conditioner. I'm like, you can always turn on the heat. So,
That's right. Tell Mark
Cheryl,
we have an amazing
come to
drum kit set up at
Minneapolis.
Squirrel House right now. So we fight dirty. We'll do whatever we can to get you guys here.
God bless you too. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing a bit about your journal, your audio journal of what's going on in your life and your part of
Sure.
the world. Anything else you want to say?
Cheryl, we love what you're doing. We're honored to be your guest, and just keep doing it. We need a voice like yours. We need a place people can tune in and have hope.
That's very kind of you. Thank you, Michael.
And I want to listen to your podcast. It's 19 Voices,
19 Stories.
19 Stories. Okay.
That's the show
I'm gonna
you're
look it up.
on. Okay.
Out
Right
Hello,
now.
right
Jersey
now.
girl. 19 Stories.
Hello.
Hello,
You know what?
lady.
When I played it for her, she had no idea. I learned to put things in front of her because a big setup, it doesn't work with her because that's why she's a Spidie. She's all over the frickin' place. So I just said, listen to Cheryl, and that's why she's a little in the dark.
That's okay. I never even asked you where Spidie came from because I kind of had an idea of where it did.
Well, he gave it to me.
You're an
so.
artist. Look, you're an artist and you're living with, the nuts and bolts of this is how we do things. That's why, Michael, you were so successful because you came alongside all these musicians who are like, I can play this, but
Spidie's.
outside of that, what do I do?
That's right.
Right.
And I'll tell you, Cheryl, when Donna and I met, because we worked together, and she was kind of the person that had to come to me and run everything by me.
I was his art director.
She was my art director. And what I found is that she had the ability to do so many things at one time. And it reminded me of the many years that I would camp in Glacier in Montana. And on the glacier lakes on a spring day, you would have these water bugs. And you know about these. They look like they have boats on their feet and they run on the water every just direction. And it reminded me of her, except I didn't want to call her a bug. So that's where Spidie came from.
Water spider.
So it's a compliment without, calling her some kind of an insect.
Or superhero.
Superhero works. Well, she is a woman after all. The multitasking ability has no end.
She's amazing.
And she puts it on canvas, and it's beautiful.
Yes.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Love you too. God bless you guys.
Okay.
We'll stay in touch, and until then, take care.
Okay, hon. We love you very much.
You too. Bye-bye. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of 19 Stories. Thank you once again to Michael and Donna Meyer for being such wonderful guests today and for creating such a beautiful community within their Longfellow neighborhood of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'd also like to thank the following news outlets for the use of their clips in so aptly painting the picture of the fear that we're facing during this pandemic: BBC, PBS, Now This, UNESCO, and Some Good News. I especially want to thank Joel and Luke Smallbone, otherwise known as the Group for King and Country, for allowing me to use an excerpt of their song Together, which could not be a more hopeful and inspiring song for such a time as this. Finally, I'll leave you with the following from Proverbs 23:18. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Thank you again for joining me today. Feel free to offer feedback or a story idea at 19stories@soundsatchelstudios.com. Visit my website at soundsatchelstudios.com, via Instagram at CherylHollingVO. I look forward to sharing more stories on the next episode of 19 Stories From Fear to Hope. Until then, stay healthy and hopeful.
Together with our differences, together we are bolder, braver, stronger.